Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today to join our great panel. Let me stand. I think it will be easier for me for the moment. Before I will start, I was requested to ask you at the end of the session, please give us some identification to how the session was for you, and if something can be improved for the next years, the next sessions. So please don't forget to do it through the app. So today our panel will be about adversity, or dealing with adversity. I'm sure any of you ever, at any point in your life, you went through a short one or long one. So today we brought stories, very personal stories, very deep fears and anger and other feelings that our panelists went through. And it will be a great opportunity to actually share with you, and it's quite brave to do that, you know, being on a stage and tell your secrets, your darkest secrets. So we hope that will be something that come out of it and you can learn something from it or be inspired from it now or in the future, or maybe not for you, but somebody else that went through something, will go through something similar. Before I will let the panel introduce themselves and their very good stories, actually, I brought with me this. So in case anyone needs later on, I'm just going to leave it here. And don't be afraid to come, and doesn't say anything about you, right? So I will quickly just tell my own story. Some people know me here. I can't take a 1.5 year story and make it in 2 minutes. It's impossible for me, and I always said I'm not going to tell the story because I'm a storyteller and I just can't stop. But as my husband said, get to the point, so I'm going to try. In 2022, I had great 2 managers, one for relocation, one for immigration. And we were a really great team together, 3 of us. And one day they invited me for dinner and informed me that they became a couple. Normally I get, oh, no. That was really, I was first very shocked that happened. I was happy for them because I really care for them deeply, but I kind of like first thought that my radar of romance is better than this because I really didn't see it coming. However, I kind of got in shock because I realized that soon both of them will leave. Because normally when you're in love and you know things going good for you, you're also exploring different things, you are more brave to do, you have better support, and this is what happened. A few months later, they left the company, and that's fine, that's okay. Everyone has their own path in their career. I was even saying, hey, let's keep in touch, maybe we can work together, and so on. But they were invested for the next 1.5 years to just destroy my company, Relocation, from the outside, pouring a lot of toxic environment through the Facebook group of the team. So it was a group that had all employees, the current employees, the new employees, and it was absolutely disaster. I got to the point that I could not get out of bed from depression. Doesn't matter how good I tried to do things to work, it just didn't. I didn't get the knife in my back, I got it in my heart. 2 of them, and then they turned them every day. All my body was in pain. I couldn't sleep, just pain. I didn't want to go to sleep because it was a torture, because I was just trying to go to sleep. It was a betrayal for me, and I just couldn't get out of it. No, I couldn't function as a mother, as a daughter, as a wife, and it was a terrible time. I decided or thought about closing the company and just finding a job. I don't want to work with people anymore. I don't trust people, and people are my source of energy. So it was like absolutely disaster. And then my husband told me, whatever you decide, I'm just following you. I'm going to support you, whatever. He said, but you will never be employed in someplace else. You're just going to open another company. And if you're going to open another company, I mean, you already have a reputation, you have clients, you have a cash flow, so just maybe downsize. and just work with the best clients, well-paying clients. And it took me a few weeks, and then I decided that I'm going to fight for it. I believe in myself, my talent, my experience, and I knew that I can make it. And I went out of it eventually. I got to the point, 2 years later, we became heiress. That happened 2 months ago. So another company, another big and well-valued in our industry, knew my story. I was very open for it, and they believe in the company and believe in myself. I was able to bring it to a point that it has real value for everyone. So that's my own story. But we will go now to our panelist story. Can we go back? Thank you. And thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And we will start with our panelists with their story. Tracy, you actually have a great passion of sport. Ironman, that's amazing by itself. That was your goal, and you worked 1 year hard for it, and it seems like everything went wrong on that day.
Yes.
So what happened?
Yeah, thanks, Dana. Yes, so I often say to people that the longest days of my life were childbirth, and that was an involuntary pain. And the other is the Ironman. My first Ironman was a total of 15 hours because I had a few mishaps, but that was a self-inflicted pain. After many years between and a few half Ironmans and all that, I decided last year to kind of finish my racing days. I was done with wanting to compete. So my husband and I decided, let's just do one final Ironman, just to finish off and tick that box. What had happened back in Austria in my first Ironman, I ended up with being dunked under right away and had an asthma attack pretty much from the start. And the swim part was really difficult, but I managed to finish and all of that. So in 2024, signed up for the Hamburg Ironman in June, and really what I wanted was a good swim, finish well, and I practiced for it, practiced the food, because that's super important. We always say it's the fourth sport is managing your stomach and when to have a gel and when to have, an energy thing. So a few, setbacks, but I felt very ready in June, knew I could finish in time, had my times written on my arm, on my bike, it was down to a science. And when I got into the water, very calm actually, a boat passed by on the side and I ended up gulping water, and I think my brain just went straight back into an asthma attack. So I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh no, not again. 3.8 kilometers doing breaststroke is very long. I just kept telling myself, you don't need your arms again, just keep swimming. I think I sang the Dora song, Just Keep Swimming, about an hour. So finally got out of the water, very happy. When any of you have asthma, it does cut a lot of oxygen out of your legs. So when I got onto my bike, the first 20 kilometers, I really had no oxygen in my legs, and I'm thinking, I've got to push through this, but then finally got the momentum, really started getting my speed back, feeling happy, starting to really believe I'm going to be able to get the cuts and do everything. And then at the 66-kilometer aid station, stopped on the side to refuel, knowing I needed to get more gel in my system. And I was about to continue on, and another biker rammed into me from behind. And my leg was still clipped onto the bike. So found myself on the ground, not quite sure what had happened, but then I saw the other player, and few swear words later, realized my bike didn't have any tire, my tires were fine and all that, and I was ready to get back on my bike, and there I had this sharp pain. I thought it was a cramp. So by then a policeman, a bunch of volunteers were there, and so they're like, oh, let's lay you on on your back and raise your leg. And when they raised my leg, I was like, something's wrong. A bit in denial. And I'm like, leave me alone, I just want to get back on my bike. And I couldn't lift my leg. Ambulance came, and very long story short, at the hospital, they're like, we're 99% sure you have a torn hamstring, at least one of the 3 hamstrings. I don't know if you know that you have 3 hamstrings in the back of your leg. I didn't know anything about it. And at that point, they're like, you need surgery very quickly because it can get very complicated. And I was so much in denial. I'm like, well, my husband has his Ironman in 2 weeks. Can I go there and then get operated if needed? And they're like, no, you're not listening to me. Something I do want to say is the other player actually got up, didn't ever say, are you okay? And he left. So he left to continue his race. And I think that for me was probably the hardest thing to deal with. A hit and run, you have no answer. You don't know why the person rammed into you. You can't even let them know that you didn't finish your race, and you keep thinking he just continued on because he was losing 2 minutes because he fell. So that was probably, for me, the hardest part of this. No, it's not the hardest part of the accident, but it was a part that was difficult for me to accept.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you actually reached to the organization to get some, because it was not very sportive for him not to stop by and so on, but you could not get to that person eventually.
Actually, because it was a mistake on the police should have taken both our names and all that, and he didn't. He was helping me, which is very nice. That Ironman then kind of kept bouncing it to the police kept bouncing it back. So nobody wants to find out who it is.
And you mentioned also denial. So you actually, the beginning, they were about to tear your, maybe you can.
Yeah, so in the ambulance, I kept thinking, I just got to get back on my bike because there's certain time cuts. And I knew I was very short in time for the first bike cut. And the medical doctor was like, we need to cut your tri-suit. And I'm like, no. I was like, I can't bike if my tri-suit is, he's like, ma'am, you're not, it's over. And so it was just this constant process. To skip then to be, the 10-hour drive back to the hospital in Basel, and there they let me know that all 3 of the hamstrings were torn off my pelvis bone, that the surgery was going to be, I had to be on my stomach, that they had to screw 3 titanium screws into my pelvis bone, and that the recovery was going to be, at that time he's like, it's going to be a year. And I was sort of like, you've got to be kidding, like this is not happening to me. So at first you're just in a lot of physical pain as you're healing. So the first week I kept it together, and then it was a long road to recovery.
Okay, thank you, Tracy, for sharing. Daniel, let's move to you. So Daniel, you are from Israel.
Clicker.
Oh, of course.
Sorry. Thank you, Tracy, for reminding me, so you can see the before and after, or middle, let's say, middle way. Yeah. How happy she is on her left beginning of the process, or even going out of the water, right? That you still think that you are like calculating the numbers, only the numbers. Can I make it? If I will make by this time, it will be okay. And before everything went wrong.
Can I ask one question? Are you well now?
Yes.
Yes. Good. So thank you, Tracy. So back to Danielle. Well deserved. Daniel, we are both from Israel, so emotionally we are connected in that way. 7th of October, 23, there was an invasion to Israel, and at the same time, thousands of missiles are sent into the country, everywhere in the country. And you are dealing with personal survivor, family survivor, but then you have a company as well, and you have the clients who are freaking out and looking to get out of the country. What happened in one day or in that period of time?
So, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to speak here, and it's always very special to share personal stories with the industry, with these communities that I feel very close to and gives me back a lot. And while you're saying this, I'm reliving the situation, so it's not in the past, it's actually here and it's present. And yes, our life has changed on October 7th, and what started as a very quiet Saturday, the last day of Sukkot, turned into a nightmare and chaos and complete uncertainty. I was, you know, as you said and you all know, there were hundreds of people from Gaza flooding the south of Israel, the kibbutz, and basically burning homes, shooting people, and kidnapping families from their beds to Gaza. In the beginning, I was in complete shock, and I really couldn't move, and I was in complete fear for my safety, but at the same time also fear from the new reality that is coming up, and realizing that this is it. And if everything that I've ever known about my life is going to change at this point, and we are starting a new page. And I'm realizing that it's happening so quickly really made me feel anxious. And as time passed, you know, images from the Nova party where, you know, I can't explain this in words, but it's not just the violence that we saw on television, it's just the scale and the speed with which everything happened. And at that point, there was so fragmented information about what is going on, and you try to understand who is there, who is not there, where are your relatives. People were posting things on social media, trying to look for their relatives. And at this point, you just stop thinking in terms of kind of like, I don't know, comfort and routine. You're just getting into a survival mode. And I was specifically at that stage, we were living in a house that we rented because we were building a new home, and we didn't have a safe room or a bomb shelter in our house, so we really just had to go to the neighbors. And that sense of exposure really does something to you as a human being. I mean, not having that protection. And I think that those first days in Israel really felt a bit like when COVID hit, and when nothing seems to make sense anymore. I mean, it's just like the world is upside down. And I think that that experience of disorientation and rupture is not something that is unique to me or to Israelis. And I'm sure that there are other people here in the room that have gone through a similar experience, and immediate examples will be people living in Russia and Ukraine, but also people, living in Hong Kong during the protests, and people that live in countries where legal systems have shifted overnight and access to basic human rights is gone. And when I came here and I did some thought processing, I didn't want this to make this conversation political at all. It's really about understanding that our lives are so fragile, and losing them could happen in an instant moment. And you think that you live far away from the conflict, but it's not that far away, and you never know when it's going to happen. So During, of course, the first hours, I was very much focused about my family and my friends, and but very, very soon I started to think about the business. And of course, our team and our employees and their families, and then our clients and the expatriates that we are responsible for. And I felt just huge sense of responsibility. And I know that they were looking for guidance and support and get explanations for something that I didn't have any answer to at this point. Because I was there experiencing the same thing. And I thought about this, that some of them just arrived to Israel. Some of them have lived here, but they didn't want to take part in this war, but they are here, and we need to be there for them. And very, very, we didn't have time to pause. We had to act very fast and start being there for our clients and providing answers and updates about what is happening. And I was not pretending that I'm not afraid. I think I was very clear about, how I'm feeling, but I still try to provide structure as much as possible. And at that point, you realize that you are dealing with two conflicts. I mean, on one hand, there is the fear for your human safety, but at the same time, I mean, it's collapse of the business as usual, and it was something that I had to go through, and it took me time to deal with this. But our team was magnificent, and I have such best people in our company, and they showed up, and we stayed resourceful and operational, and we provide safety as much as possible to our clients. We help build evacuation protocols, even though such protocols do not exist. I mean, you don't have something ready in your handbook to deal with every situation. So we were making a decision hour by the hour, and providing support for very random situations. It was very tailor-made situational counseling that you had to provide on each and every case. But we showed up, and our team showed a lot of empathy to our client, and I think that that's what kind of like made us go through this. And of course, while you are doing all of this and acting on for your clients, there was a risk. I mean, we were worried about the business. What is going to happen? I mean, relocations to Israel immediately stopped. Assignments were on pause. I mean, of course, evacuations, and we didn't know what's going to happen. And at the same time that we are dealing with that anxiety, I think that every one of us still have his own family, and I'm worried for my friends who went to Gaza, and other people have their own concerns, and we all need to still function within that environment.
And sorry to add, and with all of this, you are getting sometimes call asking for updates.
Well, yes. So it could be. I mean, first of all, most people just left as is. They left their bags and passports and everything. And money and whatever, and cars in random streets. Like they just, they were told, they were asked to leave immediately. So we had to kind of like capture what exactly happened with them and their life in Israel, and how can we support them while they're not here. So all of the support that we provided during that time was without having the customer in front of us, because people were leaving the country very, very quickly. But I think that, doing this and having purpose was what helped us, work around that fear and anxiety, and knowing that we are meaningful for them.
Thank you, Danielle. So, Manu, your story is not that fresh, a little bit back 12 years ago. While the story of sport and war might not be that close to all of you because like I don't do sport or I don't fear where I live that any war will come, Manu's story can happen actually to anyone. So
Hopefully not.
tell us what happened.
Yeah, okay, emotions coming back up here. So, what would you do if you received a $400,000 Canadian tax bill for money you didn't earn? Seems impossible, right? Like, it's a mistake, somebody did something wrong, someone did something illegal, all those things I can imagine are going through your mind. They went through mine. So this happened to me, and this is my story. I'll try to keep it short because it's a year's story. But 12 years ago, on vacation in the Basque Country, I received notice that our small DSP in Montreal, Canada, was being audited. The company was 15 years old. I thought, this happens. I called the accountant. I called our lawyer that we call once a year for a contract or something. And they said, no, don't worry about it. This is standard. It happens to all companies. It's kind of a lottery. You got picked. It'll be okay. Call the auditor. Tell them you're on vacation, and you'll meet them when you get back. So I'm like, okay, this is not good. It's going to waste time. I've done nothing wrong. It's just going to be a month or two of wasted energy, but we'll get through it. It's the cost of doing business. So I get on the phone from Basque Country to the auditor, and we'll call him Mr. T for tax. And Mr. T, I said to him, I'm on vacation. I'll be back in a couple weeks. Can we meet afterwards, a week later, 2 weeks later? And he said, Madame Dumas, fax me your ticket right now, and we'll meet on the first business day when you get back. And then I went, uh-oh. That sinking, terrible feeling in the pit of your stomach was like, who am I dealing with? Inhumanity, aggressivity right away, and non-flexible. So that started the situation. So now the audit. Next phase, audit from hell. So come back on the first business day afterwards, meet at the bookkeeper's office, take out the files that frantically on the Sunday preparing to give to an auditor. And the auditor starts going through the files, and he says, no. This will not do. Your files are all classified by statement, by chronological order, by bank, by this, by that. And he said it has to be by category of expenses. So for those of you who work as business owners or in accounting or DSP or RMCs, we have a lot of invoices. We work with clients. We have invoices for moves, for housing, for our services. There's a lot of expense management, thousands of pieces of paper. And so the bookkeeper sitting next to me went and got her boss, and the boss said, what are you doing? This is not normal. You can't ask this person to like reorganize all their filing system. What part of the law says that? And he says, this is how I want it. This is your audit. You need to get everything ready in a week's time. So then everyone was shocked. We proceeded and said, okay, can we have 1 month per year? Because we had 3 years. It's a typical audit. And he said, nope, you have like 1 week or 10 days to prepare. So the other thing the bookkeeper said is don't give them the original receipts because you never know. They could lose the original receipts, so you must have copies. And I want to remind everyone, this is 12 years ago. There was no scanning. It was paper. We were still little pieces of paper. And so we had to do that. So imagine getting together a whole bunch of people, the team, and reorganizing, photocopying, getting all this to an auditor. we kept asking for a bit more time because we couldn't, physically, we could not meet the demands. It was impossible. And we had like 10 people working on this, making copies and going to stores to make copies. It was a nightmare. So this person obviously was inflexible, not reasonable, and when we asked for more delays, he showed up at our office unannounced and started intimidating my team. Of course, a government auditor with a badge coming in and saying, I want to see your files, you haven't given me the files for this year. So it was incredible. I didn't know who to call, the police, the lawyer, the this, that, no idea what to do. So I asked him to leave, thinking was my right, that I could ask the tax auditor to leave, which he informed me I did not have that right, that he had the right to take all my files and so on and so forth. So after this nightmare of year 1, 2, and 3, the auditor didn't find anything substantial. I mean, didn't find, a little bill here, didn't agree to, et cetera. So I thought, whew, we made it, it's okay. Guess what happened? Auditor decided to add on 4 more years. Year 4, 5, 6, and 7 to the audit process. Unheard of. So at that point, I got into entrepreneurial defense mode. And I went and I hired the Smith type of accounting firm, thinking they would have all the influence in the world, that they've been through this with the big companies. Now, don't forget, we're a small DSP, 100 clients a year. So this type of investment was incredible for us. It was all the cash flow we had. So we hired that. We hired tax lawyers. I figured the tax lawyers will know what they're doing. Of course, they deal with huge companies, so on and so forth. So to get to kind of the end of the story, we sent letters to the superiors. We sent letters to the divisions. We said, this is unfounded. The requests are ridiculous. And at the end of this story, Mr. T called me up and said, I'm running out of time after 1 year of all this back and forth. And he said, for year 6 and 7, I'm going to use your deposits in your bank account as your revenues. And you will be taxed on that. And I said, what are you talking about? This is not possible. At this point, I'm going crazy, thinking, this can't happen. The denial, the rage, and call the lawyers again. And the lawyer informs me that, yes, they have the right to do that. The tax authorities have the right to do that. You can go to Supreme Court, the tax court, et cetera, but it takes years and years and years, and you need support. This is all procedural law. You need support. So the tax lawyer kindly informed me that it would take 3, 4, 5 years to get this heard in court, at which point, for the first time in my life, I had a panic attack, a full-blown panic attack, like you see in movies. Couldn't breathe. Water was streaming out of my eyes like it was a water fountain, and I was just hyperventilating. The lawyer on the phone was like, calm down, Madame Dumas, calm down, please. And I was just like, it's the end of the world. $400,000 that I had to make a decision at that point. What was I going to do? The money was gone. It had been spent on the professionals. And so at that point, went home, thought about mental health, thought about family, thought about friends who have been incredibly supportive through this whole thing. And I had to make the decision with my husband whether we continue and lose our home, basically. That's what it would mean, to lose our home, or whether that we cut the losses at that point and move forward. And I'm going to wrap up here with maybe a little tiny bit of mystery, but just to say that we, for family reasons and mental health reasons, we decided to cut our losses at that point and stop the legal process.
Thank you, Manu, for sharing. It's a very short time to really tell the stories as really they happen. And I had with any panelist one-on-one meeting a few months ago, and I always left very emotionally crying, going to my husband, you can't believe what happened. You can't believe the story. It's very difficult to tell the story in 7, 8, 9 minutes, but I hope you understand where they were. Tracy, so counting time, eventually get hit, even after the water thing happened. What do you feel? What emotions are running into you? Or in you?
Definitely a lot of emotions. Yes, I'm a transition coach. So I have worked with a lot of individuals that go through grief. But actually, when you yourself are going through that, it's a very different time scale. There's theory, and then there's the reality. So I mentioned I was very, very angry. And I'm not somebody who's necessarily angry. So it was a different kind of emotion for me. I was so sad, and I was so angry that this man just left and finished his race and that I couldn't. I was angry that my husband could do his race. I know it sounds horrible, but I was actually really jealous. And I was shocked. And I think another thing that was difficult for me is normally I'm somebody who picks myself up and it's like, okay, well, you know what? In a month I can redo a race and I'll just move on, you know. And here the recovery has been so long. And when the surgeon said, you know, it's going to take up to a year and more to fully recover, I was in denial, but it made me even more angry because I thought, here I am, 8 weeks on a bed, on a couch. I couldn't sit. I wasn't allowed to sit. I wasn't allowed to put my foot down. I was 100% dependent on my friends, my husband for, you know, even getting into a shower. It's so not me that I just found myself really, truly sad and angry.
At any point, did you allow yourself to break?
Yeah.
I mean, you're a very strong woman, Tracy. Like, you just
Iron
continue, or it's like,
Yeah. Well, and I think that was also, well, the physical pain for the first week really set me back as well. But so 2 weeks later, after my accident and operation, my husband had his Ironman, and he at first didn't want to go, and I was like, go. And I didn't even want my girlfriends to come help me, so they did. They did a rotation, and they'd come and help me get dressed, take a shower. But the rest of the time, I was by myself in the house, and I really needed that time. It was a time when I think it's like all the rage and all the anger, I was able to just sob and just get rid of my frustration. And I needed to be alone for that. And I needed, it's like, I wanted to be strong for my husband, because if I would break down, he would not do well in his race. So it's like, go. But
So
I
it was
do
in
think it's
hiding a little
important to allow yourself that full blown anger or grief or sadness or whatever it is that you're going through when you go through a physical or emotional accident or trauma or, you know, situation in your life.
Daniel, how are your emotions? Where?
I mean, at the beginning, of course, anxiety and fear and losing sense of what I'm supposed to do. But there is something that you need to understand about Israelis. So we used to live in a situation where there is adversity. I mean, this is part of our background noise. I mean, everyday life. And this is something that we explain to our expatriates when they come to Israel. And it's just, we're getting used to that. But in fact, we are so close to the surface, being alert, and when something such as this happens, then we go back and suddenly think about past traumas that we have experienced. And to me, when October 7th happened, yes, that was a new trauma to experience, but immediately it took me back to our history. And my grandmother was a Holocaust survivor. Some of my grandparents left Poland before the war, but immediately that's where everything, it reminded me of that situation. And in Israel, I believe that we are all suffering for some type of PTSD situation, even if we're not saying this. And just to give you an example, last week it was Memorial Day, and there was a ceremony in Tel Aviv, and there were thousands of people, and someone shouted something random in the crowd, and people thought that there is a terror attack, and immediately everyone ran and collapsed on each other. It was a huge risk there, and apparently nothing happened. But this is how close, to the surface our alertness is. I could hear something and think that something is happening, and I would run away. And it happened to me several times in random situation, in the tube in London, and in an airplane, and because it comes up very quickly. Exactly.
Alert.
So, but you need to act fast, and you need to move from reactive mode to intentional very quickly. So that's what happened to me.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for sharing. Manu, what's...
Quickly...
you have a long years of...
I went through the whole trauma, again, it's nothing compared to what my colleagues here have gone through, but I went through the whole trauma process of shock, disbelief, panic, fear, sense of injustice, despair, exhaustion, sleeping for entire weekends, and then resolve, full of energy, and then at the end, acceptance of the situation. So I went through the whole process during this year and a half, I would say.
Yeah. Thank you. Tracy, you mentioned being a victim in all this situation that happened to you. How does it feel to be stuck, and actually how you get out of it?
So, of course, there's tons of different kinds of victims. My youngest is adopted, and he is definitely a victim of his situation and still working through it. I felt victimized mainly because, one, I didn't have the answers as to why he rammed into me. I felt like he took my race away, and he went to finish his race. I felt victimized even with Ironman, the actual those who do the race, because they weren't willing to give me the name of the person. But as I was working through that, ironically enough, 3 weeks before my race, I went to a women leadership conference in Switzerland, excellent conference, and one of the speakers her son had been brutally murdered. And so she was actually talking about overcoming grief and living with grief. And I found the talk, it was very emotional, of course, but she gave an example that stuck with me, because she said, we are a house, each of us have our own house, and we have many, many rooms in that house. And she goes, my son is today a room. And at first, I would go into that room, and I would sit there for days. And then months later, I would go maybe for 3 hours into that room. And as time passed, sometimes now I just open the door a little bit, but I continue on. And basically, it was the example, and I loved it, because it was, you live with every single part of the rooms of your own house. They don't have to be completely encompassing for the rest of your life. Time heals. But it was something I really thought about the 8 weeks I was on the couch, was today I'm wallowing and I'm angry, but by September, I was already thinking, okay, it's time to move forward, however small, And of course, the minute I could start walking again, because sport is my de-stress, I already felt a whole lot more control. And I was excited to even just be able to do 1 kilometer, so it's all relative.
Small winnings.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you say September, so so all started in June? Was it in June?
Yeah.
So it's 3
beginning of
months
June.
later.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was starting to feel ready in September to move forward, but my body wasn't ready. I actually was taking a walk. It was end of August, and it was a path where there's bikes, and with that, of course, from behind, a few kids and a mom biked past me, not even whizzing past, and I literally, there was a lake, and I almost jumped into the lake, and I was like, what just happened? I was frozen, I couldn't walk anymore, I was by myself, and I'm like, what do? I've got to get off this path now. And that was just the beginning of this constant fear of anything coming past me, whether it's a car, a kid playing soccer, anything. I would freeze, and I'd have to walk through and just be like, okay, nobody's gonna ram into you. Going to work meetings in Paris, London, crossing a road. And so it's interesting because my brain wasn't ready to move forward. And then I ended up having to work with a trauma psychologist to help me with, they help you with exercises and eye coordination and things like that.
And it's amazing that you actually contact somebody. I mean, you realize your situation, that you need some help and some professional help.
It took me a while, but yeah.
Yeah. Manu, it's totally chaos. It's just getting worse by the day. Where you find your strength? Do you find your strength?
Well, there were moments, like I said, of pajama weekends where I never got out of bed and just thought, if this can happen, forget it. Let's give up. Let's not have a business, that type of thing. But having all these people who came together, friends, family, even at the end, accountants and lawyers were doing pro bono work. You imagine, the kindness of humanity that came to help during this crazy situation. It gave me strength again. It helped me to find that strength again. And funny enough, it's crazy. I've been thinking about this over the last few days, but crazy enough, this whole situation has made me feel grateful, in the end of all this, grateful that, I got a tax bomb on the front of our business steps, but you know what? It wasn't a landmine. It wasn't a bomb. It wasn't a missile. It wasn't a broken body. It wasn't a death. It wasn't a death of a friend or a family. It was a year of waste. It was our life savings gone. My office had to be sold in a dramatic move of throwing the keys to the auditor and all that kind of stuff. But in the end, it's stuff, and the stuff, it's gone. And the other thing that this situation brought me is a kind of confidence that, stuff happens. Stuff happens, and you just have to deal with it. And if I dealt with that and survived, and my family survived, and my marriage survived, and all this type of thing, then I can walk through life a little bit more confident and maybe less naive than I was 12 years ago.
But it's funny that you mentioned about the keys just randomly, which is a big part of your story. You literally took your keys and you kind of take this, take everything I have, just leave me alone, and this is how you solve it.
Yeah, exactly. So we had a meeting at an office after I got this thing, and I just said, what do you want from me? Here's the keys to the office, here's the key to the rental car, that type of thing. And in the end, to not leave a mystery, is we ended up having a settlement, but that settlement meant losing an office that belonged to us, losing our life savings. And but you know what? We have our health, rebuilt, became a better entrepreneur, became a better business person, and really learned to never judge situations like that for other people. Because let me tell you, in the past, I would have said, why is that happening to that person? There must be something underneath there. And it's changed me profoundly to never, ever judge a situation until you're actually in a person's shoes.
I understand. Danielle, what is the support system you have inside? I mean, everyone are in their own very difficult situation. So who supported you? Or?
So my family is my source of strength, and they are the immediate, really people that I get support from. And I have, I'm not dealing with everything by myself. My whole family, except for my brother, are working also in the business. And our company is celebrating 80 years of doing business in Israel, which is even more than how Israel, when was established, from when it was established. And I think that legacy really gave me some quiet optimism that things, we went through a lot. I mean, this company, I haven't lived through that, but I know that we are still here. So probably this will pass as well, and that notion really helped me, as well as getting emails and messages from people in our community. I remember when I came to Euro last year, it was the first time I flew abroad, and since October 7th, and I was so excited to see life outside of the context of the war, to a point where after the gala dinner, I went outside and I saw Tad and I started to cry, and he cried seeing me crying, and I hugged him and I just thanked him for what this community is doing for one for another. And that was very powerful. But it wasn't just like external forces helping me. I think that the way I manage my mindset also really helped. And I think all of us describe a situation where we are in a fight mode.
Fight or flight,
exactly.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, our vision is very binary. I mean, we cannot really make connection with our full emotions. So we're, focusing on the task and, the tactics. And the minute I understood that I cannot just focus on providing answers to everything and just connecting with the emotions and asking people just how do they feel, and through talking and asking them how do they feel, I felt better and was being able to even change the tone of voice, change the tone of communication. That kind of like led me into providing more meaningful, impactful support, and that sense of agency almost, in your role as consultant has really something that shifted my attitude towards the situation and made me feel better. And I think that we, as a team, experienced that, all of us, and we were doing this for our clients. So that's kind of like how I see it.
Thank you, Danielle. Manu, will you do something different with all this process? A year and a half, a lot of meetings, a lot of discussions. Will you do the same?
This is the woulda, coulda, shoulda question. I've thought about this for years and years. What did I do wrong? How could I have prevented this? So, I look at every experience as you have to learn from it. That's it. That's all you can do. You can't change the past. You can just learn from this. What can you gain from this situation? And I think that sometimes I made a mistake between fighting for justice and being self-righteous. And I think maybe if I had been, again, in hindsight, maybe if I had been less combative, so strongly combative when I felt this injustice, and tried to find a little bit more humanity and connection with the auditor, maybe, it's a big maybe things wouldn't have gotten to this extreme, because at the end I felt it was a complete battle of the wills, adding on year 4, 5, 6, 7, it was this was not rational anymore, this type of thing. So I think, but I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah.
And I've stopped questioning that now and just said, acceptance, it happened, learn, move on. Yeah.
Yeah. I also have this tendency to always look at what is right or what is the law, and I will fight for it since I was a child. And my husband always say, you want to be right or you want to be smart, so choose between the two. Let's get a little bit positiveness from this, so people will be a little bit cheered off.
Life is chaos.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some lemonade from this lemon.
Yeah.
Daniel, what lesson have you learned? What you can, share with the people
Well,
that they get
first
their energy back before they leave for their meetings?
I feel like adversity is here and it's part of our industry, and everybody should think how would they, what would they do when that happens to them. And I think that you build your resilience not by thinking about your SLAs and scope of work and your checklist, but more about being human and connecting emotionally, with yourself and with your clients, and showing empathy, leading with empathy. It's so important. It's not just a soft skill, it should be a strategy. And I think that I am experiencing this here with the people that I meet, but I think we should all put more emphasis on this. And I think that this experience also shows how important we are as professionals, and in the way that we provide humanitarian support to people. And I'm sure I'm not going to be the only one experience this in his country. And we were very lucky. Our team did so well, and we won an award. Yes, we never submit any entry to any award, but last year we decided to do something because I felt like the team was doing so well, and the way that we managed evacuations was so successful, and we got that award, and we were very lucky. And I was happy to share this with Elaine from Eris. So for us, it's not about the award, it's about the actual recognition from the industry that our role is so important in providing humanitarian support, as well as, not just supporting people while they are transitioning their career, but also when there are crises like this.
Tracy, short question, short answer, please.
Yeah, third one. I think all of us have said it this morning. It was said, it's really being in tune with the people in your team, those around you. As a coach, I've told my story for others who are going through anger because they've been made redundant, or leaders feel it's not their fault. Why does it happen? Is it of my doing? And it's not. And I think the message we do want to say is learn, first of all, grief is your own grief. When you are going through something, there is not a timeline, and you need to take the time that you need to go through that process. And even if somebody wants to fix you or to give you words of wisdom, it'll be okay, that kind of, tune out and allow that time. If you have lost someone, if you are battling with cancer, if you are, going through a divorce, lost,
Someone.
Can't get pregnant, tons of hurts that are all around you, you're the only one in your time that can go through that process. But once you have accepted that loss, learn from it, grow from it, and use it to be more empathetic with people around you. Use it to have deeper conversations. Be more aware of the hurts of people around you. They don't have to tell you their whole story, but if you are more in tune with everybody, it's true that those connections will happen, and the support is so important. Be mindful of letting those that you love know that you're not okay.
Thank you, Tracy. Manon, I'm going to challenge you to have a shorter answer than Tracy.
Absolutely. Short answer. Out of the lemons and the lemonade, I think having your tribe of people, your colleagues, your friends, your family, your other professional contacts, it's very important. And we tend to get involved with our businesses doing well and this doing well. And I think it's a great lesson to like keep strengthening that throughout your entire career. And for me, it's, I now mentor younger entrepreneurs in preparation for this possible situation. And it could be disasters, it could be something, but to prepare and not be, hopefully, in a situation that I was in, completely surprised by it. So I think we can take this adversity, deal with it, accept it, and then take the lessons learned and pass it on to others.
Thank you, Manon. And share. It's so much important. I think that's why we are all here, because we believe it. Don't keep it to yourself. Really, don't be afraid that how other people will see you, because I think they will be disappointed later that you have not shared it with them. It's like, really, you have been through that and you didn't tell us. We want to be there for you. It doesn't make you weak. It actually makes you strong. And my motto over the years is always that you cannot never copy somebody else's success. I mean, even today, if you will go and do exactly what Mark Zuckerberg did one by one, you will never get to Facebook success. However, you learn so much from people's mistakes and challenges. You can save time and energy and money by just avoiding what other people went through, or just learning for what they went through, so you can do it the same if it went well or actually differently. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you learned something from us. This is very brave people. Let's applaud for them.